Hello everyone, only a small percentage of people that watch my videos are actually subscribed, so if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing, it's free, and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the video. I was born when my parents were both 19, and my only other brother, let's call him Josh, was born when they were 42. They divorced shortly after Josh was introduced to the world. He was 4 months old at the time, and they both wanted nothing to do with the child. At the time, I was 23, and I was living alone with my then girlfriend who was 21, now my wife, and I'd done my best to convince at least one of them to take care of young Josh for his sake and the family's sake, but they refused adamantly and said that I should be taking custody of him instead. So I became legal guardian of my brother, and he's been living with us for the past 12 years and things have been going really smooth for us. Josh, now almost 13, has been calling me Dad, and my wife, Mum, and our 2 children, 4, 9, his siblings, and he has absolutely no idea about his real parents, and to be honest, I let all of that slide. He has no idea that I'm really his blood brother and not his father, and I'm starting to feel guilty and a little weird. Some of my uncles and aunts come to visit occasionally, and they are really disgusted at the fact he calls me Dad, and they are surprised I haven't told him the truth. They constantly message me, talk to me in private, and I cannot chat to them without this one particular topic rising up, badgering me to let him know already, but I refused. I discussed this with my wife and she thought it would be wrong to tell him the truth because none of my parents wanted to take care of him, and I'm the only person in the world who gave him the father figure everyone deserves. I feel that he has the right to know what he is to me and what I truly am to him, but he's suffered enough already and I just want things to continue how it is. So, am I the idiot? Would I be the idiot if I let him know the truth? My understanding is that it can be very distressing to a child or adult to abruptly find out that they've been adopted. Most things I have read indicate it's best to let the child know early on that they came from a different mommy's tummy and then went to their mommy and daddy or something along those lines. Your brother is past that point. But you are better off acting on this sooner than later. It's better that he find out from you and your wife. Otherwise, eventually, someone is going to spill the beans. I was adopted by my grandmother when I was 2 days old. I found out when I was 9 years old. I hated knowing. I would have given anything for them to never tell me because it changed nothing except give me issues with relationships later on. She was my mother all the way up to her death in September this year. Nothing that they told me would change that. If you want to tell him, do so. But specify that this doesn't change the fact that you guys are happy to be his parents if that's what he wants. Please be careful. There is so much to consider in telling or not telling. Ultimately, I think the truth is best because at some point he is going to find out anyways. But be ready for a lot of backlashes if you tell him. He is going to feel angry and hurt and abandoned by his bio parents. When it comes right down to it, you are his dad, even if you are biologically his brother as well. And good for you for stepping in and being there for him. I, 23, have a very rocky relationship with my brother, 22, to be frank, I hate him. I know hate is a strong word, but he has made my life a living hell. I have 2 other siblings, another brother, 25, and a sister, 19. My brother is on the spectrum, he's always had severe anger issues, and he's also my parents' golden child. He always gets his way, and if he doesn't then he can throw a tantrum that lasts for days. The littlest thing could set him off, he's like a ticking time bomb. Whenever my brother has his tantrums, my mom would just drop me and my other siblings at my grandparents' house until he calmed down. Because his tantrums were so frequent, we were over at their house a lot. I didn't mind, though I loved spending time with my grandparents, especially my grandpa. We were super close, we bonded over our shared love of vintage cars. My grandpa had a large car collection, his favorite car, though, was his silver Mercedes 300 SL. It's a beautiful car, and it was his most prized possession. My grandpa died 3 months ago, and it really messed me up. I'm still trying to process his death. Recently we had to gather at my grandpa's house to read his will. My grandfather was a very wealthy man, and he had a lot of assets to share. I won't go into details, but everyone got a pretty fair share of the inheritance. Things got tricky when it came down to the sentimental items though. See, my grandpa had willed his beloved Mercedes to me. I was so happy, as I had grown to love that car over the years, but my brother however was furious. He demanded that I hand over the rights to my grandfather's car to him. I was shocked. I didn't even know he had an interest in the car, and had never expressed even the slightest interest in my grandfather's cars. My grandpa and my brother didn't get along for reasons that I won't get into, but apparently my brother said that his Mercedes was promised to him. My mother backed him up, saying that she remembered grandpa promising to give him the Mercedes when we were little. They were pressuring me to give up the car, but I couldn't bear to part with one of the only memories that I have of my grandpa. When my brother saw that I wasn't going to give up the car, he in a fit of rage, he poured wine all over the interior. I'm not proud to say this, but I cried for hours. That car was so important to me and filled with so many memories, and it was ruined for absolutely no reason. I lawyered up and served my brother his papers. My phone has been blowing up with texts from family members telling me that I'm an idiot for suing my brother, that I shouldn't take family to court. But I don't care. I know my brother, and this is the only way that he will pay. My mom tried to use his autism as an excuse, but his autism isn't all that bad, and he destroyed my property. Now I'm starting to feel like the idiot because it seems no one but my grandma is on my side. So, am I the idiot? Let your family know that you were put in the position to either beat him to a pulp, what he deserved, or take him to court, and you chose the non-violent option. Let anyone blowing up your phone know you will drop your suit the instant your brother, or one of them, restores the car to its original condition, and not 1 second before. Not the idiot. Your brother is absolutely horrible. I think your parents might be even worse, though, for enabling him like that. Autism is not an excuse to be a shit person. He's a grown-ass adult. If he wants to act like a toddler throwing a tantrum, then he gets to deal with the consequences. Do not back down from this. That will only make him think it is okay to do something like that again to you. I hope that you win and that you're able to use the proceeds to get the interior restored. On that note, getting the interior restored would likely require a lot of time and money, and it's my hope that you're able to accomplish that when you win in court. If you got a bunch of money and he didn't, I'd say maybe just move on. But he got money too, so he can afford to pay for good, quality repairs to your vehicle. And if you get judgment, that may spur him not to dispute the will, because he needs the money to pay you. Yeah, your family may get mad and pull the family thing on you. If they do, tell them you shouldn't vandalize and cause hundreds, thousands of dollars in damage to a family member's property either. Where is their outrage for that? My older brother Nick has always been a little troubled, but a few years ago he met a girl I'll call Mia who seemed to get him on the straight and narrow. I met up with Mia for dinner recently to catch up. She seemed anxious and upset, and after a while she opened up about how Nick was getting really jealous and controlling and was jeopardizing her ability to finish college. Having issues with her living in an apartment where she could be having other men over. Having issues with her being in study groups and classes with mostly men in her engineering degree. He even contacted some of her professors behind her back because he did not want her on group projects with men. My advice to her is that her education is the most important thing right now. That she should focus on her upcoming senior year, even if that means making it a priority over her relationship. She said she was worried she wouldn't be able to do that without angering him. He'd shown up unexpected and angry a few times to her apartment, and when she had to deal with him until he had calmed down, she was missing deadlines. She admitted she felt like she didn't want to be with him anymore, but she was scared of what would happen if she broke up with him. He's paying for some of her school costs, and she doesn't have family support. Plus he wouldn't take it well, she thought, and she wouldn't feel comfortable staying in her apartment. I told her that she could stay with me for senior year. Pay me below market rent and use the savings to cover other expenses. The only thing I'd ask is that she doesn't tell Nick where she is living or that she's still going to the same college or anything like that. Because I didn't want to deal with the drama of having him show up at my house with a bone to pick. She agreed and moved in as a roommate. She lost his number and locked down her social media, switched jobs and told her professors to not answer his emails and all that. But then my mom came to visit unannounced and saw an Amazon package in the driveway addressed to Mia. She found out I was roommates with her now and had helped her disappear on Nick. She was really upset with me because family comes first and Nick had been spiraling after his girlfriend ghosted him with no explanation. and that it was terrible of me to help her leave him without even a breakup or explaining. I said that he was hurting her chances of finishing college, and I felt like that was more important than a boyfriend. Hadn't she always told me to focus on my school and career and not get sidetracked by boys? If she knew that was what was best for her own daughter, couldn't she want the same for someone else's daughter? She said. I was twisting her words. There is a difference between focusing on school and ending a relationship that was headed towards engagement with only a message saying to leave her alone. Am I the idiot for helping my brother's girlfriend leave him quietly? Not the idiot, but let's say what you did, help her escape an abusive relationship. Your brother is controlling to the point she doesn't feel safe leaving him. The idiot here, apart obviously from your brother, is your mom, whose golden child can do no wrong. If she was like this every time he did something wrong growing up, it is probably the reason he is like this towards women. What you did, or rather wanted to do, was great. However, sometimes you need to see the extent of how much you can help versus how you want to help. You wanted to provide a safe, supportive environment for Mia, but you can't do that as long as you're letting your toxic or enabling family come to visit. Not the idiot, you may have saved her life. I escaped an abusive marriage. My ex was jealous, just like your brother. Things only escalated. If Mia ended a relationship that was heading toward an engagement, good. Your mother needs a serious talk about her son's behavior. He's an abuser and she shouldn't be defending that behavior. My brother, 23, has been living in our childhood home with his girlfriend for a few years. My parents moved out of the house years ago, and my brother and his girlfriend has been paying rent ever since, as the only two people in the house. There's no contract, it was just a family agreement. They agreed to let my brother and his girlfriend live in the house for 5 years, and at the time of this happening, it had only been 2. Throughout the years, my parents would force my brother and his girlfriend to pay to fix up different parts of the house as a part of living their situation, and would have the neighbors spy on them to report back on anything my parents wouldn't approve of. Last year around winter, my parents asked me to come over to discuss something. When I arrived, they told me that they were planning on kicking my brother out of the house the following spring and asked me to help them break the news to him when the time came. I followed up by asking them when they were planning on telling him, and they said they would tell him in spring, just before kicking him out. They asked me not to mention it to him. So at that point, I was faced with a dilemma. I could either ruin my relationship with my parents by telling him as soon as possible so that he would have time to prepare for the move, or I could wait to tell him and potentially ruin the relationship with my brother that I've been building over the last few years if he ever found out that I knew earlier than I said. I ended up doing what I felt was the right thing, which was going over to his house instantly and telling them both that my parents were planning on kicking him out. Of course, he and his girlfriend were distraught about it, and when my brother called our parents, they were livid. They called me over and told me I was the most selfish idiot who had ever lived. That I had ruined all of our relationships with each other because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I asked them both what about this could have possibly been deemed selfish and to give me any example as to how I could possibly benefit from this situation. They didn't have any answers, so I left and told them to have great lives. They ended up kicking my brother out 2 months earlier than planned. Since then, my brother has moved out of state and both of us have cut them out of our lives. So, am I the idiot here for going behind their back to tell my brother earlier than they wanted me to? Not the idiot. What a bizarre thing for your parents to do. If they need to sell the house, why not just say so? It's still their house, they have a right to sell it if they want. Are they really that reluctant to reimburse your brother and his girlfriend for the repairs and offer them the right of the first sale? And if they're aware of those issues, why weren't they concerned that kicking him out would piss him off for him to look into squatters or tenants' rights and actually take them to court? What exactly did they think that not telling him until they kicked him out was going to result in? Probably the same thing, him and a girlfriend cutting them off. You at least gave them some warning so they could look for options before being kicked out. Your parents are the ones being selfish. They violated your brother's privacy by spying on them and violated their agreement by kicking them out 3 years early. On top of that, they didn't even give him a heads up so he could prepare to move out and just planned to tell him right before kicking him out. You made the right choice by telling your brother about this, and your parents are to blame for your relationship being ruined.